Um, Amazing. Uh, Thank you, Heather and panelists for accepting my invitation and for everyone who has joined. So I'll just give you a brief overview about Our Ladies Remote, and then we'll kick off with the questions planned for today. So Our Ladies Remote is a completely virtual worldwide chapter of Our Ladies Global. So like any other Our Ladies chapter, we do promote gender diversity in our community by encouraging as well as inspiring and empowering people with underrepresented gender identities. It also provides a learning and networking and as well as mentoring opportunities for the community that don't have a local chapter or work remotely in isolated context. So this is our current leadership team. So myself, Njoki, and Heather. And on the last slide, I'll say that we are also very much welcoming. We are open to other people to join us in the leadership team. We would want to increase our number. So for the Our Ladies Code of Conduct, so we want to provide a dedicated space that is harassment-free experience for everyone. We please note that we don't tolerate any harassment of participants, and this harassment could include, and not the entire list, such as using offensive comments about someone's identity, lifestyle, or even work practices, deliberately misgendering or using of dead names, sexual harassment, and inappropriate social contact. So Our Ladies prioritizes marginalized people's safety over privileged people's comfort. So if anything happens to you, please reach out to this email, and you can also as well as send a direct message to any of the Our Ladies Global Leadership team. So for today's session, we want to hear about tips, tricks, and real-world lessons. And with us, we have our 6 panelists. So we have Nicola, we have Pao, and we have Megan, and we have Soraya, Isabella, and Kristen. Please feel very much welcomed, and we look forward to hearing what you would share with us today. So we have had past activities, majority being on Slack, where we have had monthly coffee chat, as well as a monthly reading. Actually, our next event would be a reading on a specific chapter, and as well as peer support and online tutorials. So what plans do we have for this year? Today, we have like the panel session. In June, we'll have a book chapter where we'll be discussing about different styles, as guided styles. By actually one of our panelists is the author of the book, so we're quite excited about that. In August, we are looking into collaborating with another Our Ladies chapter. And lastly, in October, we'll have a talk by Ella, who will be taking us through birthing the pregnancy package. So how do you want to get involved? You can join our Slack community. Heather, please do share the link to the sign-up form. So this is basically the sign-up form where we'll ask some details about you, and after you subscribe to our event, and then you receive an invitation to join the Slack channel. So when you join the Slack, please go onto the welcome channel, where here you'd state about your current situation. So for example, what kind of work are you doing, or are you a student, and so on. And also you can tell us about where you're based and what is your background with R. So as I've mentioned earlier, we are looking to expand our Our Ladies remote leadership team. So when you join our team, you'll help us shape our activities, liaise with presenters, and as well as promoting events on Meetup and social media. At the time being, it's myself and Heather who has been doing that, and would like to have some more support. So if you don't want to join, there's this link. If it's okay, you can share that link as well on the chat. And with that, I'll stop sharing, and I will pass it over to Pao, who will be, I'll just stop sharing. Yeah. So I'll pass it to Pao, who will be moderating our session today. So we have got pre-planned questions. However, please feel free to ask any other question. Heather and I will be keeping track of the chat so that we can pass the questions to our panelists. Yeah, so Pao, do you want to take over the mic?
Thanks for all that, and I hope many people joins the earliest remote Slack. So we have some homework as a panelist, and Jogi prepared for us a lot of interesting questions, and hopefully we can cover everything and have an interesting conversation about tips and tricks. So to start, and so you get familiar with our voices and faces, and I would like to invite the panelists to share with us a tip or a habit that generally change how each of you work. So I don't want to put names, but I think that's my job now. So can we start with Megan? Say hello and tell us one tip or trick that changed how you work.
Sure. I don't know why I knew I was getting picked first, but that's fine. One thing that I learned that kind of changed like everything about how I work in R is projects files. So I've been doing this for a long time now. It's almost to the point where I forget that like there are some people that do not store all of their things for a project, like with a project file. Um, and for those of you who don't know, like sometimes like when you make a new project, like you'll get this little metadata file .rproj. But basically that allows you to kind of just like connect everything, you know where things are. Like you don't have to work with like half like just it makes everything so much easier. And then like it's so much nicer on the eyes because everything is just like right there. So that is my big tip of just like use project files if it makes sense for you.
That one. Isabella, do you want to continue?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Isabella. And Megan, I totally agree. The thing that I always do that completely transform how I work is using version control. And at this point, it's such a habit that I don't even think about it anymore. The first thing I do is set up a repo, initialize Git, and work from there. So version control allows you to do things like step back to a certain point in time, if you made any edits to your files that you can see them. And so that it kind of provides a source of truth of all the work that you're working on. And particularly for collaborating, it's very helpful because multiple people can work on the same file. And then you can also like backtrack again if needed or see exactly who made what change when. And even at like working as a sole analyst, though, version control is so helpful. It's similar to like Google Docs. If you're like, oh, what did I do yesterday morning? You can go and check that out really quickly and easily. So that would be my pick, version control.
Like you mentioned, Google Docs, because to me, version control is like using Google Docs, but you are in the driving wheel. Nicola, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Hello, I'm Nicola. I think one of the things that changed how I work is building my own template files. So I do, if you're doing the sort of same or very similar analysis or project or document over and over again, templating it saves you typing out the same thing sort of 20 different times. It just sort of sets up that skeleton project for you, and then you can focus on the fun bits of the project. So it's it writing the template files themselves are also quite a useful experience to think about how you approach projects and how do you structure them over and over. So it's quite a nice exercise in itself.
Do they want to learn more about that? Crystal? Okay.
Yeah, I also think templates are great. Just creating snippets for that or however you want to do that. But I think my biggest change is how I style code, and I'm sure this happened for all of us, but you go back to your old code and you're like, oh my gosh, like you can't read it. Everything's smashed together. There's no indents. There's no return. It's just hard to read. And so reading other people's code who have been doing this for a long time, and then reading the Tidyverse style guide and just learning how to write code that is actually readable and that you can share with people and you're not embarrassed to share with people, I think has been the biggest change for me, because I'm actually like, I like to look at my code now. It's easy to read, it's clear, and that kind of thing. So thanks for sharing the style guide. And Sarasha, sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. That's the Spanish version.
Soraya, yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, no, I just want to echo everything that everybody was saying. Um, as far as like how important organizing your files in like in projects. I mean, I just remember when I first started off in R and I was like doing stuff for myself, just for my class, and my files were a complete like mess, completely. And I wasn't thinking like into the future about like anybody needing to reproduce or like consult what I was writing. And then, again, like trying to run it again later. I mean, again, like this is all of the reason like that you should have everything structured very well in that art project. Um, you know, One other thing that I have been modeling off of lately, I work with a lot of software engineers and the way that they're structuring their files, like, with like, for example, the data is in one file and like they parse it out by like the raw data and then they have a separate process data file. And then also like your script file and like some other like markdown files and all that stuff. So really like delineating that file structure very well depending on like how you need to structure the project is going to be really important. And total like plus 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 to the linting and readability of the code. I've also tried to use like AI tools to like somebody mentioned templates, but also like have like a style thing that like automatically applies to my code, so that it catches the things that I don't immediately catch when I'm writing my code like free flowing, and styles it correctly. So again, like just hygiene is so important. Like just when you go back to something and you can't like reference it very well or it just doesn't work, like it usually has to go with like your file hygiene and your project structure and all that.
Thanks. And I'm seeing a lot of things on the chat. I think it's going to be a very interesting chat to save links and tips and things. So this is a recommendation for people that usually will avoid looking at the chat. There are a lot of interesting things. In my case, I think one of the things I started using not at the very, very beginning, but close to that, it was our Markdown files. And that was a huge change for me. I don't know if I used correctly. I wrote my whole dissertation in one art Markdown file. It was like, I don't know how many thousand lines long, but it worked. So that's been my companion on, and now of course also Word. Okay, so let's continue. We talked a little about this already, but let's go into more detail. What does a typical art workflow works for you? And everyone feel free to add to this, but we'd like to hear from Megan
that I know does a lot of this, and maybe then we can hear from Nicola that does specific things related to doing visualizations in R.
Yeah, so I'm just like thinking like in my head, like what am I like currently working on and stuff like that. I feel like the project that you're doing could affect how you do your workflow, but no matter the project or thing, there is always the three things: extracting, transforming, loading, whatever. So you get something in, you do something to it, it goes out. So I don't know, I have like a little bit more of a complicated example, like not like you'll be fine. You can follow me, you'll be fine. But pretty much because I work at a clinical research organization, we deal with a whole bunch of clinical trial data. So we have data that is too complicated to like have a function check or validate or whatever. So we needed a whole process to take in that raw data that was captured at study sites, do things to them, to prop them up, join things together, whatever, to give a reasonable output to another department that could go ahead and just like, check it manually. So for that, I actually work in QMDs. I work in Quarto Markdown documents. Actually, a lot of us at my job do. And we do that so that we can render the document and we're able to see the workflow of like what's going on. So like in my project, like I will have the different folders. I will have folders for like pulling in the data scripts. I will have something for like, oh, if this has to get reported out that way. Everything is really containerized, I guess. Is that a word? I hope that's a word. I kind of have everything just organized by like its function, like the source, like whatever. And I really am a fan of like chaining my stuff together. So I'm really a fan of like, oh, I have a Carto document and then I have a whole bunch of code blocks that will trigger other scripts to work, but then like it comes back to the Quarto document until it eventually reaches the end and then pushes out whatever the deliverable is. So that's kind of how I work. Like I break everything down into like what the process is, the function, what the need is, and then I pull it all together, usually in a QMD, so that we can track the whole thing going on. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, that's a very interesting example. Nicola, do you want to share with us what you do when the visualization or any workflow you want to share?
Yeah, I can do. So I guess like thinking about what type of project it is, whether it's a one-off piece of analysis that you're never going to do again, whether it might be something that is likely to end up as a package, or whether it's like something that needs to be reproduced on a regular basis. So kind of, I think figuring that out, if you can figure that out early, will cause a lot of fewer headaches down the line. I always start with Git projects. It's always my first step. Sometimes I make Git projects instead of writing them down on a to-do list, and I have just lots of empty Git projects. And then like I kind of mentioned, I have template files. So for a visualization, I have a sort of standard template and it follows structures. So one of the things I really like in R is using sections within your scripts. So you can get this overview of, even if you're not in a Quarto document, you get this nice structure to your scripts. So I have a sort of consistent structure that's always like load packages, load the data wrangling, deal with fonts and like colors. Then I have a little blank space where the plot code is going to go in here, and then all the sort of setup to save it at specific sizes and resolutions. Because that's all the stuff I sort of like, it needs done for every visualization. You always have to load packages. There's certain packages you will use every time, so have them kind of like pre-loaded in, and it saves time on writing that out. That tends to be my typical workflow for visualizations.
Really interesting. Do you start, do you use our project now, or?
Yeah.
So you start an art project and a Git repository at the same time?
Yeah. So they usually start as a Git project first, and
Okay.
then open them as an R project. Because sometimes I haven't always decided what language I'm gonna use or how it's gonna end up. When I make the Git repository, sometimes that comes a little bit later. But yeah, if you're working with Git projects, like it works really nicely with our projects. So it's quite a natural fit.
Uh, that's great. So, and again, we are kind of like going with the flow of questions because we already started talking about how we structure our projects. I think both of us already mentioned how to do that. Crystal, do you want to share how do you structure your projects? Yeah, I mean, I don't think I do anything too different than everyone else. Mine is just much more, I think, basic than what most everyone does here. I think if you know me, you know I pretty much just do data wrangling and that's about it. So, and I'm usually creating data sets to hand off to someone else. Um, I don't always use R projects because I work with a lot of people who are not necessarily comfortable navigating that. And so I just have relative paths in other ways. But yeah, I would say my workflow doesn't always even start with R. My biggest number one is to get some documentation going. Like, what does this data set even involve? What are the variables? What's in this data before I even do anything? And so that's my kind of number one concern before even opening R and doing anything. And so that's typically some sort of code book or data dictionary to let me know, like, what am I even looking at? And then I work in R scripts. Sometimes I work in R, is it notebooks? I think that's what it's called. It's like a RMD file. Only because I like to like write copious notes and I don't always want to put like a hash before it. So I just like to write all over the place. Um, and then other than that, yeah, I like to use templates just to kind of put the same kind of metadata in my script when I work in a file. And then I think one of my biggest tips for at least for the data wrangling piece is to just put like copious checks throughout, right? Like when you read in that data, you're going to want to review the heck out of that data before you do anything with it. Like what is going on in that data? Don't make any assumptions about what's going on. And then as you're kind of working through that cleaning process, that wrangling process, continue to do checks. Like every time you do something, did it work like you thought it was going to? I've just been with too many people who just kind of run through a script real quick and never check that anything did what it was supposed to. And it leads to too many errors. So throughout, just keep checking. And then at the end of it, another data sanity check, whether that's like some validation script or, whatever kind of checks you want to do. Um, and then exporting. And then I also don't always use Git. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It depends on who I'm working with and the data I'm working with and the sensitivity level of the data and the script and that kind of thing. So if I'm not using Git, I still document versions and changes to data manually. And that is a possibility. And I know people hate hearing that, but I like to let people know, like, if you're not comfortable with Git, you can still do this versioning in other ways. And so, yeah, I think that's my workflow in a nutshell. So.
Um, Thanks for that. And I saw Surasha commenting about here. Do you want to share with everyone what here is and how to use it?
Yeah, it's just like a easy way to like have it where like the file paths that you use in like your project, like the here is like a reference, like a relative reference, so that like when you're moving, like you're having somebody else try to reproduce what you're doing, like here helps them to like have their directory kind of like set up in the same way or like reference the same files sort of in the same way without like, you know, between the two different environments. So I've just found it useful, like trying to again, like have other people like reference what I'm doing as well. So yeah, I've just found that really helpful. And I guess the other thing that I would add on, I don't know if I have too much else to add over like everybody's answer about like the way that they're structuring their files and like their workflows and all that stuff. One other thing that I found is very useful and needed, especially when you're working on a team, is commenting out your code. Um, it is extremely important because I've had to come back and look at stuff that people have been working on like a year or so ago. And I'm like, what is this whole thing? And like, the comments are super helpful and also documentation. So like, README files and like all that stuff. So like, oh my God, I like if somebody puts a README file for things, like I'm just get emotional and then stuff like that because especially if it's a big project that involves like multiple people, um that documentation is just going to be so helpful later down the road.
That made me remember something I really liked. And I'm trying to use in my project is useful file names. It sounds silly, but having useful file, like even if, I mean, if you create a file that's script.r, we know that's going to have some code, right? But if you add like 01 underscore script, at least you already know that that's the first one you have to look at and things like that. And if you change the script for something else, like, I don't know, download that data or something like that, then it's even easier. So yeah, a lot of things to start doing if you're not. I've been guilty of naming things as such. Of course, everyone been doing that. I don't look at my all projects. So if we go to maybe our next step when we talk about data analysis, data cleaning is one of main things. Do you have any approach when you get this messy / real world data that you want to share? And I think everyone has already mentioned something, so I will open this to anyone that want to share.
I can share.
I'm not looking at you, Crystal. Megan, please.
Sorry. Yeah, so at work, it's just a little different because like my data is coming from an EDC, electronic data capture. So depending on the EDC, you'll have standard checks that are in place, like, oh, is this string a string? Is this number a number? Whatever. Something that I've learned on the job is actually like how important it is to have like two levels of validation. And what I mean by that is like when we pull in the data, we have data that we might have to manipulate in some way. So we have derived data. So I find myself often having to like have data cleaning processes or validation processes for our derived data, but then also the data that's actually like coming in. And it just falls that way just because like if the data from the source is coming in incorrect, that is not a problem for me. That is a problem for a different department. So like I'll have we have a package that I'm maintaining right now. It's called a firm. Um, and what it'll do is like it'll take that raw data in and it will produce reports that we can give back to the other like department and be like, go fix this. But then what's cool about that package as well is that you can have Excel reports, but you can also have like GT tables. I don't know if everyone is familiar with GT. which gives you like a quick snapshot of like, okay, like this is wrong and this is wrong because you messed up the code. Like you didn't calculate something right. So that's what I mean by like two levels of validation, because it's just like, okay, is the data correct from the source? And then like, okay, did I mess something up? Because chances are high for both.
Have a few fans of GT in the chat. Did I saw anyone unmuting? My brain is not that quick at this time of the night.
One thing that I wanted to add regarding data cleaning was like keep your, if you can, keep your raw data files separate. Like do not, keep them in a folder, do not touch them, and have all your script like source it and wrangle it and clean it from there. At least early on, I was like, oh, I'll just change this one little thing manually and, completely collapse the system. So that would be one recommendation.
Don't do manual edit, or at least document the manual edit if you can. Okay, so in terms of data visualization, how do you think about communicating results effectively? And yeah, Nicole already unmute herself, because if people haven't seen Nicole's visualization, run and check them out.
So I think the first thing is, you have to figure out what it is you're trying to communicate. Like before you go into how do you communicate it effectively, what is it that you're actually trying to tell people about? And it's surprising how many people don't actually think about that in a lot of depth. They go from data and it's like, oh, then I'll make a line chart and that's it. The line chart's already made. But kind of taking a step back and thinking about what you're trying to communicate before you get into code. I think the other thing that I do quite a lot is I still sketch stuff on paper, because it's useful and it's quick, but it's easier to throw it away. Like if you spent a lot of time and effort writing some wonderful R codes that makes a really nice chart, and then you think actually this isn't working, it's quite hard to throw all of that code in the bin and start again. Whereas if it's on a little sheet of paper, you can scrunch it up and throw it in the bin, and you haven't lost a lot of time. So I think, before you even get to R, there's a lot of data viz work you can do. And then from there, again, what I would say is that have some settings or some like a consistent style that you use, and save those somewhere to save yourself some time. So things like axis labels, if like they should be horizontal so that people can read them without hurting their neck. But it's not the default. So if you have a little piece of code, a snippet somewhere, a function that does that for you, then it becomes easier to apply those sort of best practices automatically. So you can think a little bit more about like the message and the chart type and design without worrying about all the little details you need to change.
It sounds like we need a package for better practices using Ggplot. So it changes all the defaults we don't like. I'm not saying that the gray background is bad.
It's the first thing everyone gets rid of, right?
Yes. I love being minimal. We are on the same team, Isabella. So anyone want to add to Nicola's comment, Rasha, maybe?
Yeah, no, what Nicola said was spot on. I've been very heavily involved in thinking through the way I approach data visualization in my work. Because for my stakeholders, for example, we're like a for-profit company and we're trying to generate business revenue, and part of like the ask that is given to me is like we want something high impact but simple enough at like a certain level that like anybody can understand the visualization. And so like there's all these like things that go into like how to approach this data visualization that is first and foremost thought of before you even start thinking about code or R and all that stuff, which is the R stuff is the fun part, like getting into like ggplot and all that stuff, which is like the bomb. It's awesome. But you really got to start with that fundamental question. It's like, what are you trying to convey, and what's the easiest and simplest way to visualize this? And so I know I've been guilty of in the past, like, oh, I would like to make a Sankey chart because it's like, this like really cool, like not compli I mean, well, I guess it could be complicated, but like thing that's like different and like funky, and it could like convey a lot of data in like one thing. But really, like at the end of the day, you need to say, hey, like are my end users who have this level of interest and or like data like context or like what is that phrase called, data literacy, are they going to be able to get it, right? And so I've held myself back and have stuck to like the tried and true visualizations that are mostly like bar charts or line charts. And really like, somebody's mentioning like the theme minimalization. Yeah, theme minimal. I mean, like really like, I mean, minimal I think is like the thing, like having less ink space. I think somebody like is a like a term somebody has used before, like I forgot this one person's name who's like there's like a theme named after him. But anyways, like making things as simple and readable as possible is going to be the biggest thing in data visualization before you even get into coding it and making it nice in R.
I think the name you were trying to find is Tufte. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Interesting opinions about visualization. So let's continue. And if people in the call have questions for the panelists, please add it to the chat. I will try to read them if I can find them in between all the nice tips we have.
Okay, so regarding the questions, majority of the panelists are answering them. So I think we are all caught up. And if not, I'm just pasting them onto the document that you're having a look at. Yeah.
Great. So continue with this kind of workflow or the way we work with projects. When something breaks in R, and there's always something, what's your first step in debugging? And I don't know who wants to answer that one because it's a hard one.
Can answer, especially because I've
Yes.
been starting to like delve a little bit more into development and stuff like that. The first thing that I do is read. I'll read the error message. A lot of times when I get errors and stuff, it's actually because I'm doing active like package development myself. So a lot of times it's like obviously read the error message. Does it make sense? A lot of times it doesn't make sense. And I'm trying to think of like what I would do first, because sometimes like I'll just be like, you know what, fine, and go to Google or AI, whatever. But a lot of times, because I've just been doing so much development, I do find myself just like jumping into like the debug window, which I know scares some people. But I think that it's super helpful to learn how to like basically navigate it, because it allows you to literally follow like the workflow as it's going step by step. So I'll try to find the point in which it does break, and I'll try to stop like right before there. And then I will actually play around like, well, that's Python. I was gonna say like in a debug console, that's Python. But like I would play around in the console while the environment is like stuck and stop at that point. Um, and just Google, I don't know, Google, read documentation. That's a good thing too. A lot of people don't read documentation. I think yeah, read. That is my that's my advice. Read.
Sometimes you just gotta walk away too. Just like take a breather, come back, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's the silliest error ever that you just didn't see before.
Yeah.
I second that.
Another,
Yeah.
yeah. Another benefit of reading too is like even if it's completely incomprehensible, you will have read it, and if you ever see it again, you will hopefully remember like, oh yeah, that means, I used a quotation instead of a backtick or something like that.
Have you heard about the rubber duck?
Heard about it.
Now, nice that some of you know about this. So for those that doesn't understand what I'm saying, the idea of having a rubber duck on your desk is kind of like having a office mate to tell them what's the problem about, trying to explain what are you seeing and what are you trying to accomplish. So you hopefully will end up finding the problem and solving it. And I think that works because when we are trying to explain someone else what we are trying to do and what we are seeing, we are kind of like reprocessing everything, and hopefully we start seeing that thing that it was like hiding because we've been looking at the code for hours. So and it can be any animal, of course. I like the duck, but if you have a teddy bear or something else, that also works. And human beings are usually also used. So if we continue with the questions, we have like a topic about advanced art practice. And that can mean a lot of things. It depends on what you do. But is there any kind of like advanced practice that you use when writing your code?
I don't know if this is, oh, sorry.
Yeah, please go
Yeah.
ahead.
I don't know if this is considered advanced per se, but one thing that I have been trying to sort of mimic some of my colleagues who are software developers is like the concept of unit testing. So it's kind of like I would say like kind of like how some people write functions and like, have things like parsed out like that. If you have a particularly like long script that has to like work in a certain way and sequencing and all that stuff, like uh like I've been trying to see if I can mimic like again like this concept of unit testing so that like each discrete like section, depending on like what I'm working on, like I know if something's gonna fail and gonna like fail fast, and I can be reasonably assured, okay, this is why it failed. And like, kind of like put in checks and validations on things before like it gets like too far ahead before things fail. So um it's it's something that I'm still like grappling with and like working on and like the best way to do it. But I do think like it's helped me think through the way that I structure things in order to help again with like all the things that we've been talking about, like reproducibility, clean hygiene and code and like all that type of stuff.
Great. Christian, is there anything from the data wrangling point of view, any secret you want to share?
I was just going to piggyback off of Soraya and say, Kara Thompson, who's not here, she did something similar in a project we worked on together where there was like a script that would run periodically and things would change. And she kind of put these unit tests that would like pop up these messages in the console and be like, is this what you thought was going to happen? And you would like approve it. It was the coolest thing. I didn't do that. Kara did that. I wish she was here to describe it, but it was very cool. Um, no, I don't think I do anything super advanced. I think that everything that I do, I think everyone probably knows about by now. I've been doing it for a long time. For me, like the biggest thing I like to do is connect my documentation with my scripts. So that's typically using my data dictionary within my script so that those two things are in sync. So if I'm renaming things in my data dictionary, I read my data dictionary into my script and use the data dictionary to rename variables and to recode variables and to add labels rather than doing that manually. I don't know if that's advanced or not, but to me, I like to keep those things in sync by reading the data dictionary in and using that data dictionary to do a lot of my heavy lifting for me. So
I don't know if that's advanced, but I
yeah,
haven't thought about it. So thanks for that.
I was
yeah,
gonna
no
say we
problem.
do something similar
Okay,
at our
okay.
job. Yeah, we have like and it's a pain because like we have like for my project we have like hundreds
Yeah,
of
you probably have
variables,
way more data than I
hundreds.
do.
So anytime something has to be updated, it is a pain.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah.
it is. If I can piggyback off of this as well, I would say that like when I'm doing package development and stuff, like I absolutely do unit testing. Like I put that in the chat, like test that and the cover package. Um, but when I am doing something that's not a package, I do break up my script. This is why like I like to have a QMD and the chunks and all of that because I'll derive my variables, I'll do my work, but then I'll have the workflow go out to a separate test script and that'll run through and report back to me if something is not right. Um, testing, you can absolutely have it be like your formal like unit testing, test that. You can absolutely do that, but like even just a simple like, oh, I'm going to count the values in this data frame, like something. Just do something.
Uh, if I can continue drawing on like some software engineering best practices, there's this concept of don't repeat yourself. But I do think like everything in moderation, right? Like, if you copy and paste code twice, it's okay. But I do think there comes a point where, especially if you're doing it a lot and finding like errors whenever you say want to create a similar plot for one state and another state or something like that, that you might want to start considering learning how to write functions. And I know in the chat we're talking about Roxygen, which helps you document these functions and all sorts of things. And so I just, for me, like, I just remember, like, there was one point that I was like, writing plots for like, 8 states or something. And I was like, there just has to be a better way. And it turned out to be that. So if you find yourself like feeling that, I definitely recommend checking it out. And there are really great packages that can help you use them. And if I could put it in a plug, I know we talked about our Markdown and Quarto earlier. The knitr package has these functions, like if you do a lot of reporting, and again, say now you want a report for every single um, state, and then within each report, every county in every state, um, there are parameters that can help you with reporting, and then these functions called knitchild and knitexpand that can help you with the things within your report. So again, I guess my point is like if you find yourself really feeling redundant in your code and things like that, just do some exploration and see like there might be some tools out there that can help you reduce that burden.
I would like add on top of all this is that you can use like GitHub Actions or CI and CD to run all of those tests for you. So like I don't know, like you can put those checks in, but then they rely on someone running them. So you can sort of set up frameworks where something or someone else runs them for you, and it sort of automates some of that testing for you as well. Really nice.
And you get that annoying message or email when it fails. And
Yeah.
One reason I prefer GitLab over GitHub is GitLab automatically emails you when you fixed it. So you get like a nice little green tick email, whereas GitHub just stays silent when you fix it.
Yeah, that's true. So we are coming to the end, and so we have a discussion about things that we've learned the hard way. So we can do that kind of quickly, and then we'll finish with something that we can share to like a tip to work smart with R. In terms of something I learned in the hard way, I wanted to share this because it's like a way to remind myself about this. Sometimes I find myself saying, I'm writing this in a random script or in the terminal because I don't think I will need it anymore or ever again because it's a one-off task. That's not true. It will come back and haunt you in a month or two, and you have to write the code again. So be mindful, save your code, document it, or you can use it in the future. Message for my future self. Okay, so we mentioned a lot of things, and everything is on the chat. So hopefully we can save it and somehow share all the links again later. But is there anything else we can share in terms of working smarter in R or with R? And what could it be? Let's do a whole round of this. Who wants to?
I can go. Well, I think one thing is that like we know that best practices exist, but we're all very guilty of not always following them and not doing it. And sometimes because you don't have time, or it might be because you just don't know. But the one thing you can always do is write down what you did, because I promise you, you will not remember in 6 months' time. So, like whatever you do, write it down. Even if it was a bad, dodgy, hacky thing you did, write it down.
That's a good one. Crystal?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of that and say just document as much as you can. That's like, to me, that's like the number one best practice you can have. Like your project could be like a hot mess, but if you're at least documenting what you're doing, you can at least go back and try to figure out what happened. So, but if you can also like stay organized, right? Like talk about file naming, variable naming, structuring your project, stay organized. I also just like to put out a word of encouragement for people who are newer to coding, because I work with a lot of people who are just dipping their toes into this. And I think that it can be very overwhelming and you feel like there's so much out there and you need to know it all. And you don't. I think what is really helpful is to just know that things are possible. That's one thing I've learned is like, I just need to know that I saw somebody do this one thing, and then that way, if I know that that exists or that's possible, I can figure it out, right? I can use AI or I can Google it or read documentation. I can figure it out. I just need to know that that's possible. And so that's my word of encouragement for people who are feeling like you're overwhelmed or behind. Like it's just trying to dip your toes into it and start learning what you can, but you don't need to know it all. So
That's true. So Rasha, do you want to continue?
Yeah, I just want to just echo what the two past panelists were saying is, again, like the importance of like starting each our workflow, like with the future thing in mind of like just like proper file structure and hygiene and or documenting, even if you don't think this is going anywhere. It's just so important. And it's just good to get into that habit and practice of it. But also too, I love Crystal, what you were saying, like to encourage folks, because like I remember when I was there, like I was like, oh my God, I don't know what any of this stuff is, and I could never do it, and like it's so I what I love about the art community is the support and like people willing to help and learn, and like I don't ever feel like even when like before when I needed a lot of hand holding and support, like everybody was so open and gracious with their time and expertise in helping me learn through some of these things. And I will say, like, not to like throw shade on anybody else or whatever, but it's a very different thing with like in like a techie Python environment like that I am in now. Like, it's not the same. So I just want to like put that same like plug in, like, it don't feel discouraged. Like, you can do it, and like there's a lot of people out there to that will want to help you.
I feel like what you said about the Python community is true. No, I'm kidding. I'm not gonna start a fight. But no, because like I've been expanding. I've been learning R, I've been learning or not R, Jesus, Python, TypeScript, stuff like that. And definitely the vibes are different. So I'm actually really glad that like R was my first like introduction into like, because otherwise I probably would have been discouraged and I probably would have just not continued on my path. The one thing that I want to say that like I try to keep in mind for myself, um, is to never believe that I'm gonna go back to something, right? So I think a lot of times you can have a time crunch, like you're just trying to get stuff out. Fine, whatever. Do what you need to do to get it out. But do not sit there and lie to yourself and be like, I'll clean this up later. No, that is a hard rule that I have for me. Like, if this is not decent enough to be merged in where everybody else can touch it, it does not go. Like, and I don't like I have like I am not comfortable with like having too many like not pushed up like PRs and stuff like that. Like, I'm just anal about that. So that is my hard rule. Like, whenever I do stop working on something and I want to put it, back into the repository, it absolutely at a bare minimum has to be like at an acceptable state. That is my one thing that I feel has absolutely helped me. Because then like I'll go back and like be like, oh, what did I do here? And like everything is like decent enough. So that's my advice.
I love because all the advices has been very general. So it doesn't mind if you don't use R and you're here hiding or joining the community we love, you can still take advantage of everything. I think we haven't heard from Isabella.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I was thinking about if I were to give any advice, I would say we talked earlier how reading other people's code, I mean, reading your own code can be hard. Reading your colleagues' code can be hard. And what I find very hard is reading AI code. And so I am still getting used to this, like, but the idea of getting good at reading other people's code. And if anybody has tips, please let me know. And similarly, like everybody said, my colleague Livy often says, like, to work out loud, even if the error seems so obvious, or you like the pipeline, should come easily to you. Like, just like reach out to the community, ask, and hopefully somebody can jump in, or maybe there's not even a solution. And in that case, it could be built into the next dplyr package or something like that. So definitely, put yourself out there. We're here for you. And we're all learning every single day.
Yeah, absolutely true. Okay, so I think we have reached the end. I'm so happy with the conversation we had. It was very interesting. And I will pass the mic to Jogi. But before that, thanks for the time, for all the thoughtful questions, answers to the questions, and all the comments and interest in the chat. It was really, really nice to hear from you and also read all the comments.
Thank you so much, Pao, for taking us through this particular session. And thank you, every panelist, for the very insightful words and also the encouragement words. I have learned quite a lot, or even more, some refresher. So I can see from other comments that other people have they're coming out with something. So I'm happy to hear that. So just before we end, I was thinking of taking a screenshot of today's event. So I realized that we do not have any, as an online chapter, we can't meet and take a photo as a group photo. So maybe we can do that as an online one. So whoever feels free to have the camera on, please do have the camera on. And then I think I'll do the 1, 2, 3 go, and then I'll take the screenshots. So you can, if you need to do something or do anything, just do that. I'll give you a few minutes, and then yeah, I'll take the photo. So I want to see as no. Yeah. Okay. I'm just waiting for about amazing. Any other 3 people who want to join and have the camera on? Thank you, Kemi, Mena, and yes, okay. So I will take the screenshots now. So I'll just say 1, 2, 3, go, and then we can have like a smile. You can do a pose, whichever you felt right for you. Feel free. Yeah, okay. So I'll take the screenshots now. Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay, yes. Okay, yeah, I've taken a few of them. So I will post them and maybe add it even like a cover letter, a cover page, cover here. So once again, thank you very much for joining our session. We have our next event will be in June. We'll be going through Crystal's book on data management. We'll be talking about styling. So I think we have had quite good tips about how we can do organization of the folders. And so we'll go in depth by reading that particular chapter. So probably next month, I will put up the event stuff. So just to let you know that our ladies, so there'll be some changes that will be coming. So you'd be expecting some different things, but they're all working to the best. Yeah, so I hope you have a lovely day, morning, afternoon, or evening, and we shall see you back in June.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Heather, I don't know if you're able to save the chat. I left that message for you. So I've been trying to save the chat, but I can't. I've forgotten how we normally do it.
Hang on, I'm just seeing if I need to stop the recording. Yes.